The crown looked better in red, by Lane Bly. Port Romanov looked very different once we stopped sneaking through it and started rearranging the monarchy. We returned to Code White headquarters with the Tsarina, which does change a room. One moment the Okhrana were smoking, panicking, muttering over maps, and calculating how much civil war they could survive before breakfast. The next, every spine in the building remembered its ancestors. Lyubov stood before them in full imperial gravity and told them what they already knew but needed to hear from the right mouth. The Tsar was dying. The church had poisoned the throne. Yuri had betrayed his family, and the night was not yet lost. Then the Tsarina nearly collapsed, and Kat caught her. There are moments in politics when all the lace and ceremony fall away, and you see the thing itself. A daughter holding up her mother, a queen who has finally chosen which child she will save, a room full of men waiting for a teenage girl to tell them what history is going to do next. Kira was still upright, mostly through willpower and poor judgment. She had been electrocuted in a palace service corridor and was now running on stimulants, spite, and the kind of devotion that makes doctors sigh professionally. I watched her hand tremble. I watched her hide it. I tapped the pill vial when I passed her, because I am helpful, stylish, and not above being annoying when someone I like is trying to die politely. She ignored me completely. Then Grisha forced the question nobody could avoid much longer. If his troops moved against Yuri, whose authority were they moving under? Kat did not look like she wanted the crown. That would have been easier to watch. She looked at it the way one looks at a blade with family blood already on it and understood that someone had to pick it up. So we made a plan. Naturally, the plan involved secret cathedral tunnels, a dying Tzar, a restored church, a live broadcast, Rena eating the Okhrana network for breakfast, Rook making hardware behave under threat of violence, Grisha choosing a side on both knees, and me writing copy during a constitutional crisis. Every revolution needs a press kit. I have said this before and been correct every time. The problem was legitimacy. Yuri had the expected order of succession, a stolen church, armed men, a public narrative, and the moral appeal of something found under a sink. Kat had the Tsarina's support, the old church, the truth, and the unfortunate burden of being the one person alive with a better claim who also had a conscience. The old priest, Stefan, knew secret ways into the cathedral because apparently every ancient building in Imperial Rus was designed by people who expected betrayal as a maintenance issue. Sensible, really. Their plumbing has better institutional memory than most governments. The church restoration came first, in a cleared-out room under bad lighting and worse odds. Stefan brought out relics that had survived exile, time, and the sort of men who think replacing God with tentacles is a branding decision. Philaret, young by Rus's standards and already carrying more history than anyone should have to lift, accepted the burden. The priests answered. The old words returned. And Kat was blessed as Ekaterina VII, Tsarina of Imperial Rus. There was no orchestra, no glittering ballroom, no orderly court, just exhausted loyalists, old relics, borrowed uniforms, one very serious cat, and a girl who had wanted a doctorate. Then everything split at once. Grisha, Winslet, Rook, Stefan, and the strike team went into the cathedral after the Tsar. Kat went to Landing Park with Philaret, Kira, Rena, and me. Yuri's people were moving. Armitage still had the cathedral feed. The Church of the Outer Gods still had its hands around the public throat. So we went where people could see us. Landing Park was not a throne room. Throne rooms are built to flatter the powerful. Parks are built for people who need somewhere to stand. Kat walked to the bandstand in a formal red suit. Kira stood just behind her, pale and burning through what was left of herself. Rena took the feed. I handled the equipment and tried not to think too hard about how many armed cultists might object to typography. Then the cathedral transmission came through. The Tzar woke for one last minute. There are moments a writer should leave alone. This is one of them, but unfortunately, I am a writer. So here we are. Alexander IX looked into the record and did what kings are supposed to do before everyone turns them into portraits and excuses. He named the betrayal. He disowned Yuri. He named Ekaterina his heir. Then he died. Kat watched it with the rest of the city. She knelt. Philaret blessed her before the people, and when she rose, she was not the princess who had escaped her cage. She was the woman standing between imperial Rus and the men who had hollowed it out. Her speech was not perfect. Thank God. Perfect speeches are for campaign offices and cowards. This one had blood in it. She told them the church had come from outside. She told them what had been stolen. She told them to look, not to turn away. Not this time. For one beautiful second, we had them. Then Armitage stole the feed, and I would like to say I handled that gracefully. I did not. No one handles an evil priest with tentacles interrupting your carefully staged dynastic rescue broadcast with grace. Rena fought the signal. Rook cut the cathedral transmission from inside, which is the sort of sentence that makes perfect sense if you know us and sounds criminal if you do not. Then Rena shoved the truth back onto every screen she could reach, and the church's pretty lies got replaced with its own history. Meanwhile, Rook obtained a heavy machine gun and improved the religious atmosphere considerably. Armitage fell. The restored church had its cathedral back. Yuri's convoy was taken. He was dragged to Code White headquarters, put in front of a camera, and interrogated before he had time to arrange his hair for posterity. He cracked immediately. Armitage, Martine, Zhukov, the whole filthy little chain. Some men spend their lives trying to look inevitable. Then the right woman asks the right question on camera, and they fold like cheap napkins. By the end of it, Swan Lake was gone from the screens. Rena put on Firebird. Afterward, there were the practical matters. Bodies, prisoners, medics, succession, treatment for the Tsarina mother, Martine alive and captured, Yuri no longer a prince in any useful sense, a coronation to plan in 4 months because apparently toppling a theocratic coup does not excuse anyone from the social calendar. Kat spoke with Rena about alliances, land, cats, uplift, and the bad cats, which may become the most important diplomatic conversation in the history of Imperial Rus, and also sounded like something overheard behind a fish market. Everybody got a kitten. I am not exaggerating. I wish I were. It would be more dignified. Then Kira's father called. Because of course he did. Some men can see a throne change hands, a church fall, a prince exposed, a conspiracy collapse, and still think the day is about them. Baron Krichevsky congratulated his daughter, announced that they stood next to the throne, and began outlining the next phase of his little father-daughter nightmare. Kat would need an heir. He would need influence. Kira would need training. Eventually, she would become inconvenient. Kira invited him to lunch, very calmly, very sweetly. I have covered fashion long enough to recognize a finishing detail. So we left Port Romanoff the way we arrived, in Frost's limo, under too much history, with more blood behind us than anyone wanted and more crowns ahead than anyone deserved. There was a shuttle waiting. The pilot was insufferably handsome and knew it, which I suppose is better than being insufferably handsome and confused. Rook wanted ramen. Rena wanted her promised tree. Kira wanted unfinished business. Kat had an empire. And I wanted to go home, write and publish this before I had a chance to polish it into something clean. Because it was not clean. It was frightened men in safe houses. It was a mother choosing too late and still choosing. It was an old priest spending the last of himself on a church that refused to die. It was a dying Tzar giving his daughter one final weapon. It was a girl in red standing in a park, asking her people to watch, to mourn, and to choose the country over the lie. It was also kittens. Lane's ledger. Scene: red tailoring, restored relics, a crown landing where no girl should have to catch it. Heard: Axios, Firebird, and the sound of a prince discovering the camera was not his friend. Noted: if your coup depends on everyone staying quiet, do not let me near the broadcast equipment. Best accessory: Agrafena's diplomatic confidence. Worst accessory: the Church of the Elder God's entire aesthetic. Final verdict: the crown is heavy, the red suit helped.